Hi and welcome back to my MicroBeast build. So the story so far is I've got my MicroBeast discrete soldered on there, as you can see here. The next step will be to solder the sockets and all of the buttons and then the LEDs here. So although that's an awful lot of soldering, it should be quite straightforward because it's rinse, lather and repeat for the buttons. There's no locating them, and it's pretty much the same for the ICs, the sockets. It should be fairly straightforward to locate where each socket goes on the board. So I'm going to crack on with that now. It's going to be time lapse because it's going to take me quite a while. I'll see you at the other end. So the sockets are in the this bag here, static proof bag, along with the chips and the ICs. I'm just going to stick the sockets in for the moment. I'll populate the ICs last. So let's have a look what's in here then. There we go, got it out eventually. Right, so the sockets don't have a polarity as such, but they do have an orientation. If you notice, there's a notch on the PCB mask there, the outline of the chip. That's the polarity of the chip. So pin 1 will be underneath the notch. So if the notch is to the left, that's pin 1 there. So it makes sense, just for future reference, when you get the sockets, to make sure that you align the notch on the socket, you can see it there, with the notch on the board, so that when you come to stick the chip in later, you don't accidentally put it in back to front, because that would be disastrous and wouldn't work at all well. Right, so I'm going to crack on now. I've got quite a few sockets to solder in here. Let's get them all off the board. There we go. Foam, I mean, not board. And it's the same for soldering any multi-pin component, same rule. Tack in the top left and bottom right corners. Make sure the board is. Make sure the socket is level with the board and you're happy with it, and then solder in the rest. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tack them all in with 2 blobs of solder, and then I'll finish it off in one go. Let's put the chips and the LEDs back in their static proof container. So let's start off with a big one. So we have looks like a 40 pin one there. I'll just throw that in there. Usual trick, bit of blue tack. Make sure I've got the notch in the right way. Actually, I just threw that in without checking, not listening to myself. So notch is there, and the notch is, you can just about see it there. Very small notch on that actually, but there's definitely a notch. So that goes in that way. A couple of bits of blue tack. Switch the soldering iron on, get that warming up, and yeah, I'll crack on. I'll see you at the end of this sped up socket soldering montage. Right, so that's the mould tapped in place. I think that's looking pretty tidy. Everything feels level. Happy with that. I'm going to speed on now and just solder up the rest of those pins. Right, that's done. Put the solder away. Oh, the solder, by the way, I'm using, it's Weller. It's my favourite. I love Weller solder. It's 1mm, 6040 leaded solder. So, you know, I think like most tools or materials, you kind of get used to a particular one. I just like Weller. I've been using it for, I don't know, best part of 40 years now. So, and it flows well. So as you can see, as I was zipping through there, I kind of got into a rhythm. So apply heat, blob of solder, move on to the next one, apply heat, blob of solder. You know exactly how long it takes for the solder to flow. And the pads themselves, as long as the board's nice and clean, it's not got a lot of grease on it, and you've got a reasonable solder and your soldering iron's at the right temperature, it will flow around the pad. So hopefully there's no shorts there. I can't see any obvious ones by looking at it. I'll do a proper visual inspection with a magnifying glass later in case there's any whiskers connecting pins. So that's that. Let's have a flip it over. Let's flip it over and see what it looks like. Oh, right way. Job's a good one. So yeah, I'm really quite happy with that. I think, let me turn the board the right way around so you can see it. Coming together nicely, and I'm happy with the soldering. It'll look a lot better after I've given it a wash with IPA, not the beer obviously, the alcohol, to get rid of all of the excess flux. That is looking very nice. So I don't know what to do next, whether I want to do the switches or the LEDs. I'm tempted to do the switches. I will spend a little bit more time making sure the LEDs are nice and level. I suppose the buttons need to be level as well, don't they, really? I'll do the keyboard first, because that's probably going to be the more fiddly of the two, and then I'll drop the LEDs in last. Over to the next bit. After having a chat with Andy on Blue Sky, I changed my mind. I'm not going to do the buttons next. I'm going to do the LED displays next. There's a good reason for that. And the reason is, once I've got the LEDs in and I pop the chips in the sockets, I can test it. And if I need to test a keyboard, I don't even need to solder the buttons in. This is a tip I probably got from, I think it was Time Software. I can just pop the buttons in and they'll make contact, they'll grip and make contact, so I can test it without doing any soldering. To that end, there are now 4, I don't know how many segments they've got, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 segment displays, 5 times 13. Oh, it's even more than that, isn't it? Let me count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. It's a lot anyway. So I've popped those in, and boy, were they difficult to get in. If the pins are ever so slightly bent, it's a real issue. So after about 4 or 5 minutes of fiddling around with them, I managed to get them in. Mine have come with a protective film. I assume it's a protective film. I've peeled it off in the corners anyway, just to make it easier to remove later. But I'm leaving it on so that I don't damage the displays whilst I'm doing the final assembly. Orientation, they're LEDs, so it's important you get them in the right way. There is a tell, and it's a very easy tell. There's two, in fact. The first is the decimal points should be to the right of the digits, like that. And the second is, at least on mine, they all come with a part number printed on the side. So the part number should be facing the keyboard like that. And if you've done that, and it should be ready to solder. Oh, there's one more thing worth noting. Alignment. I was worried about alignment. Well, there's not a lot of vertical movement there, or horizontal movement. So I reckon as long as I get these flush to the board, they'll be perfectly aligned. So well done, Andy, there for the layout of the board. I was expecting there to be a little bit more play in the LEDs, and we have to fiddle around with them. It's probably one of the reasons why they were so difficult to get in, to be honest. So they're in. I'm going to do the usual. I'm not going to bother with glue tack because maybe I will. That end one's popping out there. I thought they were gripping in quite tightly. I'm going to put a little bit of blue tack in just to make sure they don't fall out whilst I'm soldering. And I'm going to do the usual, which is tack in the opposite corners. Make sure that they're flush with the board, and then crack on with soldering the rest. There we go. I'll try not to get the blue tack on the pads, because I'm not quite sure how it'll affect soldering later. So try and avoid, just for just out of there we go. Just try and avoid getting out of the pads. I'm not quite sure how the blue tack will, the solder will react to pads that have had blue tack on them previous. So I think that's ready to solder now. Carefully pop it over, because they're quite heavy, these, and they have a tendency to fall out. And it's more of the same. So I need to warm my soldering iron up. One moment, please. Right, that's warming up now. Get my solder, move my penknife out of the way. There we go. How much solder have I got left? I should have enough to finish the project. If not, I think I've got another roll somewhere in the cellar. Let's get my soldering iron. 340, 350 degrees centigrade. So I'm going to do what I do with the chip sockets. I'm just going to tack it in, like so. Like so. It's quite scary now. I think once I've done this, I can plug it in and find out whether or not it's going to work. The scary bit of the project. Like so. I've checked the board already visually. I don't seem to have introduced any shorts anywhere, which is good. I'm not going to bother doing an electrical test. Famous last words, I'm sure it'll be fine. That's that. That's that. There we go. So let's flip that over. That's looking pretty flush actually already. There we go. One of those moments where you think, have I done this the right way around or not? I'm pretty sure I have. I'll double check. Alright, so I'm going to do what I normally do, which is just apply some pressure to the back of the LEDs. Oh, knocking the camera there, sorry about that. Oh, it's all happening. There you go, did you hear that click then? That was the LED. A little bit of a click there. That one seems okay. That one's okay. Click. Ah, there we go. Nice clicks there going on. Click. Click. A little bit suspicious of that third one. Why didn't it click? If we'll try that one again. Maybe got it right first time. There we go. Let's do a visual inspection. Yeah, it's looking pretty flat actually. That's do you think that looks pretty flat to me? There is one way to find out, I suppose. I can use a ruler. Now, where did I put that? Hold please, caller. Right. I don't normally use this as a rule. There we go. Yeah, let's bob on that. So if I just hold that up here like so, that's probably best if I do it the other way around, and just hold the ruler flat there. I see no gaps. That's not going to get any better than that, is it? Right, so I'll solder the rest in, and I'll fast forward through it. I'll see you at the other side. And there we have it. I think that is looking okay. I'll trim those pins at some point later. They're a little bit prouder than I normally like. Yeah, I'll probably give those a quick trim later after I've tested it. But I'm happy with that. That is looking pretty smart. Oh, there was one more thing as well. I found the loudspeaker. It was mentioned in the instructions. Let me see if I can find it. There we go. Tiny loudspeaker. And that goes here in this connection here. LS1. I wonder what that was for. I think the idea with this is you solder it on the rear of the board and glue it on the back somewhere. So there is space there. I'll use a hot glue gun just to, I don't know, glue it there somewhere convenient. Should I do that now? Yeah, I could do, couldn't I? I need to strip the wires a little bit. Maybe I don't need to strip the wires. I think the solder will probably melt it anyway. The loudspeaker, I don't think is polarised. It doesn't really matter which way you put it. I don't think. I don't think so anyway. Right. Yeah, I'll do that next. So I'm just going to hold it in place on the back of the board using, guess what? Blue tack. Always the blue tack. Just tack it in place again. Doesn't matter where at the moment. It's not the fixed final destination for the speaker. It's just so that I can poke the wires through and it's not kind of tangling around everywhere. Make mental note, don't trap the wires in there. Oh, this is incredibly fiddly actually. What did I do that for? Silly boy. Right, let's try that again. Straighten the wires. Just stay there. Oh. You just stay there. There. do one at a time, so I'll pick the square for the ground. Why not? Yeah. Square for the ground, that's the top one. So let's just see whether or not my theory of just poking the wire through and soldering it will work. It feels like very thin wire, this. Or will I need to trim it? This is actually the fiddliest bit of the assembly, you know. Huh. I'm going to have to... yeah, okay. So what I can do is get some more blue tack. I could go for the tape, but it's not to hand. Just tack that in place like so. There we go. It's just about poking through. Let's give it a go. I'm sure I can melt through the insulation. Solder. Oh yeah, there we go. Trim it at a pinch, couldn't I? I'm sure this will be fine. There we go. Right. If it doesn't beep, I can always come back to it. I think that'll be fine though. And do the same with the red wire. So I can reuse the solder blue tack. Use the blue tack, I mean. Put that through there like that. There we go. Just poking through there nicely. Do the same again. I'll just take the speaker on for the moment using capped on tape. I can sort out where it's going to go later. Use a hot glue gun. There we go. Put a bit of extra on. Just to hold it in place. Cool, cool, cool. Right. Next. I suppose I could do with getting some buttons pushed in, couldn't I? I'm just putting off testing because there's that horrible nagging suspicion in the back of one's mind that you're going to power it up and it's not going to work. I'll get the buttons in and then I'll call it for today. So let's just pop that over there again. Find the bag of buttons. Right, there we go. I can turn my soldering iron off now for the moment because I'm not going to be soldering them in just yet. Let's just tin that. Turn that off. So this contains all manner of things, buttons, keycaps. I'm just interested in the buttons for the moment, and they just pop in hopefully. Like, oh, that one's bent. That's always a good start. Bend that back. They should just pop in place and hold in place. There we go. So I'm going to fast forward through this now, and I'll see you at the other side. So there we have it, all of the keys in. I one of the pins on that slightly bent as I was pushing it in, which was a bit annoying. But I noticed it caught it before it was too late, and just straightened it with a set of needle nose pliers. So just be careful when you're pushing them in that you don't force them in, because you might bend the pins. That is looking good. I can feel all of the pins on the other side, so I've not bent any more, which is always good news. I don't need to solder those right away. I could just bask in the gloriousness of that for the moment. Call it a day. Okay, so that's the end of part 2 of the assembly. As you saw in the last section, it's looking pretty complete. Let's spin it round. There we go. Look at that. Very happy with that. And the speaker on the back, I've just blue tacked on for the moment until I've decided exactly where it's going to go. I might need to resolder that. I don't know whether or not there's a good electrical connection there, because I was hoping that because there's only a thin bit of wire on the end of the insulation exposed. I'm hoping the solder's contacting that. Well, there'll be one way to find out, and that's power it up and see what happens. Plus side, I thought the LEDs were going to be painful to line up. Not at all. Very straightforward. A little bit fiddly to push in. And the keys, again, there's not an awful lot of play there. So when I solder them, I suspect that'll just be bob on. Right. Next video, I will be testing. So I'll be pushing the ICs in the sockets, and I'll be powering it up for the first time. That'll be scary. I'll see you in the next one.